Okay, the first question, in which years were you involved with American Board institutions in Turkey? Repeat.
I was involved with American Board institutions in Turkey from 1952 to 1988.
And what was the nature of that involvement?
I was a teacher of beginning English mainly. I also taught some math, and I worked in the library the first 3 years.
And which institutions were you involved with?
I was involved first with American College, ACI, American Collegiate Institute, yeah, in Izmir.
And what other?
And for about a year and 9 months we were at Talas, and the rest of the time I was in Tarsus, at the Tarsus American College.
Okay. How did you decide to take on a position in American Board institutions in Turkey?
I decided very suddenly. Mrs. Blake, who was the principal of the school in Izmir, spoke at Northfield School for Girls where I was working, and that evening I was invited to a supper that she was attending, and I had decided to leave Northfield after 8 years, and I turned to her and said, "Do you think there would be anything that I could do at your school?" I said, "I work in the library here. I'm a library school graduate." And she said, "Not this year, but next year. Our librarian is going on furlough, and it would be nice if you could fill in for her." I was a little disappointed that it was so far in the future, but it was something. And about 20 minutes later, she turned to me and she said, "Do you think you could be," this was in May of 1952, she said, "Do you think you could be ready to leave and come to Turkey in August?" And I said, "Yes, I think I could." So I resigned from the job I hadn't yet begun, resigned from a camp job for that summer, and when school was over, I went to my home in Ridgewood, New Jersey, and got ready to go to Turkey. And I hadn't given it any thought at all.
What were your expectations before coming to Turkey? Did your actual experiences match what you expected?
I really didn't have any expectations because it was such a sudden chance, and I was surprised that I was accepted so quickly. My expectations were just that it would be a great experience.
What things are most vibrant in your memories of your involvement in Turkey?
Oh, all the students and other friends that I made. We had many friends who were parents, who were neighbors, and mainly students, other teachers, and hundreds of wonderful people.
Which aspects of the school ethos struck you as different from other educational institutions?
Well, I had worked in a very American, but a very service-oriented school in Northfield, and a private school, and I was amazed at the similarities and also at the personalities of these wonderful girls that came to ACI, and at the teachers too. I loved them all.
What were your observations about the relationship between the student body and the administrators and the teaching staff?
Well, for me, it was a great adventure, something very new. I had a wonderful mentor in Olive Green who had been in Turkey from 1914, and she helped me a great deal my first year there in teaching girls that didn't know. They came to school not knowing any English or very, very little, and ways of engaging their interest and learning about them. She was very keen about visiting our students in their homes. We had about 35 boarders, and the rest of them were day students. And I visited with her, with other teachers. We always went in pairs to visit homes. And that was very enlightening, meeting the parents and trying to learn some Turkish myself. And I really just loved my classes. And it was fun to see them grow and develop and how fast they learned. These were all students who had been accepted by examination, and they were very bright, happy students. And then when I went to Tarsus, where it was all boys, I thought, how am I going to get along with boys? And they were just the same. They were still lovable, sweet little kids, about 11 years old. And that's the level I like to teach the beginning English students.
In what areas did you find yourself growing or changing as you lived and worked in Turkey?
Well, I began to believe that it didn't make any difference what your religion was. That we never spoke about religion. We didn't teach it. And I'd never even thought about it. Or I thought, how similar we all are. It doesn't matter if we're Christian or Muslim. Everybody is good and friendly and kind and eager to learn. And it just made me believe that whatever you call your religion, we're very much the same.
Talk about any particular instances in Turkey where your life was particularly affected or changed, or where you particularly affected or changed the life of another.
Well, I just said one thing, but I can't say it was an instantaneous kind of change. It was gradual. We were there 40 years, and I think my dearest friends are Turkish, or people who worked in the mission with us. for a long, long time. Mrs. Blake was everything to me, like a mother, a big sister, a mentor. She taught me a lot of Turkish, and when we had a baby, she helped me so much with what to do with a baby. And we lived in a house that had a door that opened into her house, was a little addition. And when she heard the baby crying, she would come over and take it, and the baby's name was Mary Heather. Mary Heather would quiet right down, and it used to make me a little jealous sometimes that she would quiet down for Mrs. Blake. And another very dear friend was Nesreen Mavitan, and she was like a sister to me, or not a sister really, but a very dear friend, a very close friend. Aisha Maida was a dentist I went to. She was a graduate, a wonderful woman. And I really couldn't count them all. Sometimes nowadays I sit and think of all the different people who have been in my life and have affected it. And I hope I had some good effect on some other people. There are a lot of girls that are still my friends, a lot of students from Izmir and from Tarsus, both boys and girls.
What are your regrets, if you have any, regarding the years you lived in Turkey?
I can't really think of any regrets. I was happy from the minute I got there, and I was heartbroken when we had to leave.
Tell us about how you've been keeping up with any Turkish friends or acquaintances, or with current events in Turkey, or with the Turkish language. Are you still in contact with any students or teachers from ACI, TA Turkish American, Tarsus American, or Talas schools?
Yes, I am. I'm in touch with quite a few girls by occasional letters and emails. There are two students who are living in America that I keep in touch with. Meral Galene Crane and Eileen Galene Crawford. We telephone to each other, especially Eileen I talk with. They were students at ACI. Sometimes when old students come to America for some business reason, or they give us a telephone call, and that's always a thrill. And I keep in touch with some of the former teachers, both American and Turkish. And I must say I spend many hours just reliving my years in Turkey. And almost all my dreams take place in Turkey.
Have you been able to return to Turkey for a visit?
Oh, yes.
And
yeah.
Tell us about your visits. Give details.
When we left Turkey, we left Tarsus in 1988, and we moved to Izmir. And while they worked in the university there for 7 years, and we left Turkey for good in 1996. And our daughter and her husband, Ahmet Göktepe, and her 2 daughters were still there. And so we went back to spend Christmas with them, and they came to see us in the summer. We went back. I think I counted 15 times I've been back since we left. And the last time was in March 2013, when Mary Heather and Wally and I went. And we went to Istanbul, and where we saw a lot of Tarsus boys. And we went for 3 days to Izmir, where I saw some of my best friends among the students. And then we had 3 days in the Tarsus area, where we saw, again, many students. I mean, many graduates who are now grown-up men. Some of them, all that were there, I would say, doing very well in their professions. Doctors, lawyers, and CEOs, and dentists. All wonderful people.
When you see these students that you used to teach or know, what do they always talk about that they remember, especially about you? Songs you taught, or what do they remember?
The boys all remember the cookies and cakes that I used to take to class every once in a while. And especially if they all brought their report cards back on the day they were supposed to, then the next day I would bring them a treat. Either a big cake that I made or cookies that I made. And one boy told me that he remembered when I asked him if he had brushed his teeth lately. And I said, they're all green and mossy. And he said, I was so embarrassed. And he said, I brushed my teeth morning and night ever since. And others have commented on my insistence on good pronunciation and good sentence structure. And they mention different little things that they remember. One little incident, usually. But it's always great to visit with them. And some of them, we realize what very good lives they're living. They're doing good things, and their English helps them. Some of them have traveled here and to England, and I'm always proud of hearing them speak English. I know they don't speak English with each other, natural enough, but when they speak to us, they speak in very creditable English.